Well, it kind of gets back to this thing where you come out of life with no boundaries and life is just throwing you around. And in my case, I had demons coming out of me. Had panic attacks. I saw this man that would follow me around, which
Yes.
was completely in my imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it was just all this post-traumatic stress. Of course, I had no idea that that's what it was. But my life was just crashing and burning. So I think I look back and I think, well, I had no choice. I couldn't even function. And I
Mm.
had two little kids, and I was not going to let their lives be damaged by me. I just was not going to let it happen. And so that's when I realized, and then it finally I allowed it in my daily life that I had been molested by my father. And I had no idea before that. I kept it completely away from my consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, then I was absolutely devastated and I had to do it. It was either that
Mm-hmm.
or commit suicide and die. I
You
mean,
know,
there was,
I think our mental capacity starts failing us, doesn't it?
yeah,
We don't
yeah,
have enough mental capacity to keep it down
just can't
and
keep it down any
can't
longer.
keep it down any longer.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I think that's how I felt like it was sink or swim, I don't know if I didn't have kids looking at me and needing a mommy, I don't know if I would have gotten through it because it was
Yes.
so,
I always
so
say that to
hard.
my kids. Yeah, I don't know if I would have had enough love for myself.
Yes, for
Right.
myself, that's right.
Exactly. I
That's
don't know if I
right.
would have had enough love. But Kevin certainly found the love for himself. Kevin, talk to us a little bit about what that looked like for you when you said, I'm going to step into healing and it's time.
Hmm.
So, I'm overly transparent. So I got to the point of promiscuity where I was a nymphomaniac. And I did not want to be that person. And I knew that sex had overtaken my life. And each time I would feel more guilty, more condemned, and miserable. And I'm like, why do I keep, repeating this and hurting myself? And I knew I was in trouble when I would say, okay, I'm not going out tonight under any circumstances. 2 or 3 hours later, guess where I'm at? Where I shouldn't be.
Mhm.
And so I knew that it was going to take a divine strength to help me. Now, I did not get delivered in that moment, but I think God was setting it up like, okay,
Mhm.
he's finally, coming to his senses. And I said, God, I don't know how I got here, but I mean, we really do know how we got there because we
Right.
continue in sin and then it overtakes us. We think we're
And our
stronger than what we are.
right. Well, in
No,
our
you can't play
childhood,
with the devil. You can't play with
right.
none of his stuff. But I'm talking about as an adult. I knew
Right.
right from wrong, and I knew
Right.
that there was a such thing as deliverance, but I didn't wholeheartedly seek it. So
Mhm.
when it overtook me, I said, God, I don't know when and I don't know how, but you got to help me. And it was a little bit after that it finally happened. So for me, I had a divine encounter. And when I say divine encounter, it's like one night I went to bed. Nope, let me take this back. How it all started. Um, I was going to marry a man, and we were going to move out of state to a gay affirming state, and get married and adopt a kid and buy a dog and buy a house, the whole 9 yards. But for some reason, I didn't feel 100% confident about it. I said, this is strange. When I went to bed, I said, am I making the right decision? Because as a child being abused, I know that your decisions not only affect you. So I said, should I be marrying a man? Should I buy a house with a man? Should I raise a child as two men? It's just all these questions. And I said, Lord, what's the right thing to do? And why did I ask that? The next
I'm
day,
sorry I
I had
laughed.
a divine. Listen,
Mhm.
Jody, why did I ask that? The
Right.
next day, when I woke up, I had clear vision. When I say clear, I'm not talking about natural, I'm talking about spiritual. I understood what Jesus meant, and I heard from the Holy Spirit clear. It was like a miracle. And I knew that that lifestyle was not right for me. I said, I don't have a heaven and hell to put somebody else in, but I'm only telling you my personal convictions. I knew that that lifestyle was not right, and it goes against the order and the creation of God. And so I said, you got to help me with this. And he said, I'm going to bring you out of it. He said, and I'm going to use you and your story to help so many people get free, because everybody in that lifestyle does not necessarily want to be in it. They don't know how to come out of it. And then there's the lies that people have been told, that God made you this way. Once gay, always gay. It doesn't matter who you love, live your truth. All that stuff is not, that's not God's plan. And I'm going to say this and I'm going to be done. If God is in, okay, everything God does produces life, right? So he said, be fruitful and multiply. Did he not say that? How can two men or two women be fruitful and multiply? They can't. They're trying to create it scientifically now, but that's not what God created. So you can't undo what he's already created. But I'm saying that to say, if everybody lived their truth and decided to do women with women and men with men, society would cease. There would be no fruit. There would be, the earth would depopulate. So when God gave me that truth, it just blew my mind, because he said, can two men produce the life that I said to be more, to multiply? I said, no. He said, well, then I couldn't possibly be in it. He said, I couldn't have possibly created something that goes against my plan for mankind. I said, whoa.
And I love when you said, Jody, why did I ask? I think the reason we ask God for help is because just that we need help, and we know that it's outside of our strength. I know I have found myself in situations, Kevin,
Completely out.
you know what I mean? Just drunk and with married men and going to work with hangovers or still drunk, and really, really needed help outside of what I could do. Who I am today is not who I've always been. And so, you know what? I'd ask God, or I wouldn't ask God if I wanted to stay where I was, because I knew he'd help me. Like, I had this sense that he would help me, and he did indeed help me. It's not an overnight transformation, and I certainly had to show up and put my work in. But I just have to smile when you said, Jody, why did I ask? Because I know I've asked too. And sometimes in my mind, I go back and forth and think about the drastic changes in my life that he has helped me complete that I could have never done on my own. I don't know. It's kind of like, Carol, what you were just saying. I don't know who I would have been had he not intervened. And I've seen him consistently come find me, even sometimes when I didn't ask. And I'm so thankful for that. So anyway, I just had to go back to that, Kevin, because I love your spirit around that, because it's like, why did I ask? But the truth is where I don't think
God,
that, I don't think we're, yeah. I don't think that we feel
no, go ahead.
I don't think we feel satisfied and whole there. I mean, I could have continued to kept finding another person to get into some terrible relationship with. And what that did was make me where I didn't have to really look at my own past, you guys. It kept me running. And so my healing took so much longer because I was constantly running and recreating my abuse instead of stopping my abuse and then making choices as a result of what I chose.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I totally agree. There's a, the thing with the victimhood is that we have to be accountable for anything. If
Oh, that's
everything is
so
somebody else's
true.
fault, and what they did this and that, and I
100%.
can't find love, and that's an scapegoat, because in
It's
every
a strong thing
relationship
to
outside
say.
of being abused, we teach people how to treat us. If you let the man knock you upside the head one time, what you think he gonna keep doing?
Mm,
So I'm not excusing it or saying abuse is okay in any circumstance. It's not. But a lot of times we allow this stuff and then we want to play the victim. You have a choice of who you lay down with. You have a choice to have this person in life or to block them. You know what I mean? Block, delete,
You know, and
restraining order.
honestly, right, in my life, I have to say, I think what God does is give us clear definitions of left or right. And then we have to choose that left or right. And I have to say, actually, in my own life too, I've had to exercise my right because I've wanted to use my deep pain and my cavern of bullshit that I came from to say, I can't. I can't. You
mhm.
have to give me an out because I can't. And I'm angry. And I'm going to get drunk tonight because I'm angry. I'm in pain. So I'm going to work it out this way. And you have no idea what it feels like. I could go on and on
Yeah,
and on with all of the excuses until finally the
Yeah.
pain was overtaking me and I couldn't take the pain anymore. And for me, it was wanting to pop that bubble of pain that kind of led me on. But I do hear what you're saying. It's hard in the beginning of my life. It was so tucked away when I was 18 to 35. My abuse, it was kind of there, but really it wasn't because I was
yeah.
raising children and it was really on the back burner. And I lived with a very abusive man. And so I was always running around serving him and cooking dinner. And by the
Mm,
time I got done, Jody didn't exist, which was the whole point. I
yeah.
didn't want to exist. And
Hmm.
so, it's more complicated than that. But certainly as we get older, we do learn the distinctions of that, or where I just kept going more alone, you guys. The older I got, the more I was alone. And I got into counseling because I didn't know how to have relationships because I'd never seen what it looked like. And I kept
Yeah,
picking bad relationships.
yeah. But I think in general, we all hit our rock bottom,
I think
whether
so.
it was from addiction, whether it was, just a level of pain that we just couldn't handle anymore and couldn't keep down, like you said, Jody.
Exactly.
So I think it's
Exactly.
all that similar thing, but you don't look at this sexual abuse unless you, by God, have to. I mean,
I
this is
agree.
it's so difficult and so painful, but yet I think it's that scale, the pain of holding it down versus the pain of looking at it. And at some point, the pain of looking at it looks better than the holding it down. I think our subconscious
Right.
is looking for that. And then you start getting better. And so that's really a miracle in our lives when we start, looking at it.
I think it's true. And the thing is that I want to do is I want to be sure to leave a lot of grace around that because we really
Mm,
are a mess in our mind. The convictions can't be so strong when you're so confused you don't even know how to get out of the paper bag. You
yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I really want to leave a lot of grace for that because I don't
Yes.
want to act like, oh, I knew and I didn't do what was right. A lot of times, like when I talked about that story about cheating on my husband after 3 months, you know what, you guys, after I'd been beaten for 18 years, I didn't know any different. And God is my
No.
witness. I just went. People can believe that or not, but we are on autopilot.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and because I was then hurt by him, I didn't do it again because of course I knew it was wrong, but then I feared him. And so then I just took my prison gear and gave it to him and then just showed up in his prison, right? So,
Yeah. Yep. That's
so
right. No, and I don't blame anybody when they're not looking at it because I know, I certainly didn't look at it for, a whole
exactly.
lot of even my adulthood and yeah, it's not that you're saying to yourself, gee, it's here and I'm just not going to face it. You're just living, you're just coping as
Right.
best you can and getting through day by day until you
Exactly.
can't,
Exactly. And Kevin, I guess that's the thing that I want to hear, or I want your heart to understand too, is because of this horribly graphic abuse, sexual abuse that you received from your father, that commingled in everything good in your life. And so I just always love to bring that grace because God is also full of grace and love. Like the end result of everything he does is say, I get it, son. Just like you, he brought you understanding for your father, that understanding for ourselves, that I can forgive myself,
Mm,
which actually that kind of tears me up because it's really hard to forgive myself for some of the things that I've done and for not being the mother that I could
mm,
have been. But to bring that grace and that love to those areas where
yeah.
we really couldn't do better than we could do sometimes. Kevin, do you believe that that's true? Trying to find his mute button.
Yeah.
Carol, what do you think about that? Isn't it hard to forgive ourselves?
I think it's the hardest thing.
You
Yeah,
know, and
hardest
I
thing in
don't
the
know
world.
why, right? Like
And
I could,
I deal with that daily. I think that self-love that, that is such an important movement that's going on now that I never really considered, I don't think, in my life. And
right?
and I deal a lot with food addiction still, and to love myself through that is so, so difficult.
Carol, we
And
all struggle with things. Always. I can do really good and then I drink too much wine because I just want to let go. Like we all
yeah,
do, and let's not BS that we don't, because
yeah, that we
I,
don't.
right, because that's
Right.
just white knuckling life and it's not reality. And so that's the other beautiful thing to talk about, right? But keep going. Every time, what I'm learning to do with myself, if I wake up with a hangover because I've had one too many glasses of wine,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I
Mm-hmm.
do? God loves you, Jody, and love yourself right now. Just
Yeah.
because we have to just keep putting more good in instead
Yes.
of like we would just want to dump bad on, make ourselves feel condemnation. Only love
Mm-hmm.
changes things. I am
Yes.
such a believer that condemnation doesn't change anything. Trying harder doesn't change anything, but pouring more good in does.
Yes.
Does that make
And
sense?
yeah, absolutely. And forgiving yourself. It's
Yes.
Why is that hard? I mean, I can forgive everybody around me, but boy, forgiving myself. And we've all made horrible, horrible mistakes in our lives and done things for years and years that were not productive. And it's human nature, and we're all made imperfectly,
Oh, aren't we are
so
such imperfect, yes, creatures. But
yes, we're
I
very
I
imperfect.
think the one thing that really protects me from being harsh on myself is to know that God knows my whole story
Yeah.
even better than
Yeah.
I do. You know, we talk about some of the abuse that we don't remember. Carol and I were talking
Hmm.
about both of our brothers coming to us and telling us that they'd done things to us. And while I remember some things, I don't remember it all. I really believe with everything in me that God knows my story better and he has such compassion and love. That's what changes me.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
makes me want to live a healthier, better lifestyle. And
Hmm.
you know, we all are going to struggle doing that, but that
Yeah.
compassion changes us, right?
Yeah. It is. It's yeah. And and like you say, forgiving what we participated in is really hard because it's
It
so
is hard.
against our value system, against everything.
Mhm.
I mean, I would wouldn't hurt my kids, in that way at
Right.
all. And I it's so hard to think I did this horrible stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the hardest things I think in recovery is
It
is
is.
really
Yeah,
forgiving
Kevin,
just the sexual abuse, just what happened.
yes.
Yeah.
Are
Yeah,
you
or
there with us now,
understand.
Kevin? Oh, his mic isn't working.
Oh, okay. No.
Oh boy. I think your
Yeah,
mic isn't working.
technical
We're having
difficulties.
and I really want to hear what he had to
Yeah.
say about that because it is
Yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. I
Yeah.
wonder, no, we can't hear you now.
Mm-mm. What's this signal? I don't
That's
know.
okay. You know what? You guys, we can get his sound back on because we can cut this part out. It's fine.
Okay. But yeah, I think, that it's very difficult to see yourself as a child and how complacent you were.
Right.
How do you forgive how complacent we were? And so
That's hard.
why it's so important to be talking about it, because we all were complacent,
You know, and what's funny is I've heard some people say, I interviewed this one lady and she said, my father came home that day and I looked at him and I said, no, you're not going to do it again. And he never did it again to her. And I
Wow.
thought, Oh my gosh, it never even occurred to me to say that because
Mm-hmm.
my asker was so broken. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
ask for anything. You know what I mean?
No, no.
And so I've not been hard on myself, but I'll tell you, Carol, I've heard a few people say that. Even Kevin has a story about that where
Mm-hmm.
his father asks him to go one step further when he gets older and he says no. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think, boy, that never even entered my mind to say no because I didn't
Yeah.
have a choice. I didn't have a
And
choice.
it also gets to, these really are not powerful men. These are
Oh,
people that are abusing. They may look powerful,
exactly.
right? They look
Yes.
strong or angry and we're terrified, but
Yes.
some of them you might be able to just push over. And so,
So true.
you
My
know,
dad was 5'8" and a buck 55 when I was a kid, maybe.
yeah, that's funny. My father was too. He was just
Yep.
about 5'8" and a
Yep.
thin little guy. But I think, not even physically standing up to them, but who knows? Maybe if I had really stood up and said something, he would have just
Right.
tottered away. We don't know that, but
We don't know that.
yeah.
Kevin, are you back with us? Can we hear you now?
Oh my God. See, I had this brainstorm that I was going to switch over to my laptop, but it didn't go so
Well, you
successfully.
know what? It
So
looked great. You look great on there,
I
but we
should have just left it
couldn't
like it
hear you.
was.
That's
Yeah, I
okay.
should have. There was something I wanted to say, but I lost my thought. You guys had hit on a good something,
Well, what we were
but
talking about was that compassion for ourselves and how God knows our entire story and that it's his love that changes us. And he does know that we get lost in our story. And sometimes we're doing the best that we can. I really think that that's true. Like the time
Yeah.
after that I left, I was saying, and went home with that man. Well, that was wrong. And did I know the difference? Yes. I was so in compliance. I really did just leave with him because I didn't know any better. I mean, it's
Hmm.
weird. Yes, I knew it was
I
wrong,
mean,
but I
it
just
becomes
went. And
You
so
yeah,
were
it,
the
18.
dysfunction. The dysfunction really becomes your normal,
it
and,
does. It
and
does.
people
And
don't understand it if they haven't been in that. They don't get it.
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, this is what I wanted to say. I don't know why God makes me this transparent like this. I don't like it, but I have to be obedient. One of the things that kept me in that was the guilt, the fear, and the condemnation of knowing that what I was doing is wrong. And when I say guilt, nobody talks about this part, but sex feels good.
Oh
So
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
even though I
Right.
was doing ungodly things with the
Right.
person that I should have never been in that situation with, there was an aspect of it that felt good.
100%.
And I
Yep.
never wanted to be honest with myself and say that because I'm not agreeing with the violation of a son and a father, but it feels good to be touched.
Mm-hmm.
It feels good to have an orgasm. It feels good to do sexual things.
Right.
So that was that was something that I had to be honest with myself and
Mm-hmm.
said there was an aspect of it that I liked, even though it was as perverse as it was. Who doesn't like to be touched? And so on and so
Right.
forth. So I had to forgive. I'm going somewhere with this. With all that guilt and all the shame and the secrecy and the victimization, I had to not only forgive my father, but I had to forgive myself for
Mm-hmm.
the roles that I played in it. And then remember, I had to take authority over that because I didn't want to become the person that he was. Remember, I had the little incident. So in the back of my mind, I had to always, I'm not going to say fight because I really didn't have a struggle with it because I always dated my own age. But I became a master manipulator.
Mm-hmm. I
I'm going to
understand
say it
that.
again.
Yep.
Any man that I wanted, 9 out of 10, there may be a few failed attempts on the records, but 9 out of 10, I would do whatever it took to get them, buy them weed, get them drunk.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not even going to go into all the tactics, but
Women
it was
have
a
a
90%.
whole tool belt
Yeah,
too.
it was a 90% successful mission.
Mhm.
So I realized, you know, in all my gettings and in all my conquests, I was never, but I also realized that I had toxic traits, you know, so
Oh,
I
yes.
couldn't really look down on my father because in a
Mhm.
way I exhibit those same characteristics, maybe not abusing kids, but abusing grown men, taking advantage of them when they're drunk and, you know, the gay for pay guys. And
Mhm.
it's a whole laundry list. But thank
Mhm.
God I'm out of that now.
Right. And that's exactly what where when you had technical difficulties, what we were talking about was finding that space and the place and the mercy, because God's throne has all of those things to forgive ourselves and really move in that forgiveness, because I really believe the thing that changes us is love, right? And that constantly pouring in of better. Because we were talking about the struggles that we all still have. And Carol talked about eating too much. I was talking about having 2 or 3 glasses of wine too much, all of these things that we still struggle with, because life is, we are broken humanity trying to just make it through this place.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I just like to bring, that grace around it, because
Mhm.
it's true. I mean, we can try to white knuckle it, and then, it's not about how
Doesn't
many
work.
times it doesn't work.
That
So,
doesn't
and
work.
It does not
I
work.
love, right. I love that. This is what's so beautiful about getting together with other warrior survivors, and just talking the truth about it. And I know that our conversations help other people, because our vulnerability is something that millions of people cannot do. And I hear often, thank you so much for the courage to do it, because it does take courage. And I thank both of you guys for being here tonight, and having the
My
vulnerability.
pleasure.
We have really, it's so beautiful. And I know that God is really using these conversations. The panels are really successful. I've watched the numbers just grow and grow and grow. And so I think it's really beautiful to have a community where we come together and talk about this. So we are well at time. I like to leave it with just a little bit. If you guys would like to, if you think that we left off anything tonight, this has just been a beautiful discussion. Kevin, we'll definitely have you back. I just love listening to you. It's so, like
Oh,
Carol
thank
said,
you.
we really honor that you have the courage to stand up, because there's so
Yeah.
few men that do. I mean, I've interviewed a few of them, but I tell you, there are few and far between. And
Far
when they
between.
do talk, but what's interesting, you guys, is that I have more men save my videos than women do. Um,
Oh,
you can, I mean, if the name is so it seems like that. And we also have a large following of men. So that tells me that where else are they going to go, right, for
yeah.
vulnerability? And
Yeah.
this is not a secret what we're doing, because we were victimized. We, what I mean? This is not, we need to change the vernacular. When you get in a car crash and you break your leg, what do? You go tell everybody, because it was such a violent act, and you need to
Oh,
share it.
oh,
It's exactly the same thing with childhood sexual abuse. We need to share
yes.
it, right?
Because it is a car crash.
It is. It's a terrible car wreck.
The
Oh
horrible
my
car
God.
wreck. Yeah, that's right.
It's
Yes,
a
it is.
horrible car wreck.
Well, it was a
Absolutely.
pleasure, and I really appreciated everybody's honesty and
Very good.
meeting you, Kevin. It was great. So thank you so much, Jody.
Yes, absolutely. Kevin, do you have any closing words you'd like to leave?
Likewise, likewise. Great meeting you too, Carol and
Thank
Jody.
you.
You know, you're my girl. You know, I just want people to know, I think what I started out saying in the very beginning, you know, a lot of people have experienced trauma in their childhood and they never talk about it. They never get the healing. You deserve to be free. You
Yes.
deserve to be happy.
Yes.
You deserve to live and rise above what has happened. And the two ways to do that is to forgive the offender. I know it's not easy, and to forgive yourself and choose to be happy, choose to live in freedom, choose to let the past be the past, and know that you didn't have control as a child, but as an adult, you have the control. So if you want to be happy, you have to shift your mindset. You can't think like a victim and expect any different result.
Mhm.
And the key is spirituality. And I'm not talking about new age and candles and floaty boaties and
Or
no,
religion.
I'm not no sage. Use the sage in your dressing. Amen. I'm talking about a bona fide relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. And that is the road to happiness, to deliverance, to peace. Everything that you've been searching for in the drugs, in the sex, in the alcohol, in the buying all these designer bags and all this luxurious stuff, it only brings a certain level of contentment. The only true peace is being spiritually grounded and to have a relationship with God. And I say that because when we leave this earth, the Gucci bag is not going with us. The boyfriend, the girlfriend is not going with us. The 6-room mansion is not going with us. So we have to live a life that will, um, we have to live a life that when we die, we're going somewhere. Even scientists will tell you that the soul, it never dies. So we're going somewhere. And I pray that you find that, I pray that you have an encounter with the Lord so that you can make heaven your home. That's all I got.
I love it. I love you both. You guys have a beautiful time. We're going to talk
Yeah.
soon because we're going to do this again. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye, ladies. God bless you.
God bless.